So we were rehearsing last night, the vocalist for Sunday morning, and Whitney showed up with her little son Judah. And he was just holding her hand, actually was clinging to her quite tightly for a lot of the time. But then she put him down and he braved meeting people. She was holding his hand, and he would kind of wander one way or another. But he'd never let go. You know, he doesn't let go. He's still young enough not to let go. You know, I don't know what time they finally say, hey, I'm out of here. But it did remind me, as you guys fish out how firm a foundation your music, it did remind me again of Isaiah 41, which is where the text is taken from. And we spent a lot of time last year when we were learning this anthem about the hymn itself. But the 10th verse says, "Don't fear, for I am with you. Don't anxiously look about you, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, surely I will help you. Surely I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." And it goes on to say, a couple verses later, where he repeats that. God says, "For I, the Lord your God, hold your right hand. It is I who say to you, fear not. I am the one who helps you." And I pictured that for a moment because God was using his right hand and grabbing my right hand. And I was in my weird thinking going, so how does that work? His right hand is over here. My right hand would... Exactly. I found myself backwards. And I started to think to myself, how appropriate that God would take my right hand and I would be looking the other way. I wouldn't be looking the way he's going. I would be looking the way I want to go. And I started just picturing that. I went, just bear with me. Because I think there have been a lot of my life where God maybe had me by the right hand, but I wasn't thinking about walking the path he was walking. I wasn't thinking about what he was really taking me through, especially when those moments where what you're going through isn't anything that you ever want to go through, and you're saying, Lord, why are you leading me through along this particular path? Sometimes when we're looking backwards, we're looking back at something that we're afraid of. Maybe something's chasing us. Maybe there's something behind us that we feel guilty about. Or maybe we're just distracted by something that we used to have that we thought, you know, was the thing that made me happy. The things that I love. But all the while forgetting who it is that's holding my hand, leading me on, who knows the way my life should go, because it's already planned out to the very day where he's going to take me home. Now, I'm pretty sure that phrase, "uphold you by my right hand," has more to do with his strength, his power, his ability to take care of me as well as to fulfill, and more importantly, his plan for me. Because he has infinite power, we know that. He has strength, he has unfailing love, and he never forsakes his child. So even if I'm going this way, and it reminds me really, I've got 2 dogs, and they both do very different things. My Australian Shepherd, if I let him go, I'll never see him again. And the Belgian Malinois that we have is afraid to go outside. So if I take them both for a walk, it's almost like being drawn and quartered. It's like, that's kind of this picture that I had in my mind as I was looking at this. He is my refuge in times of trouble. And I look at that, and I guess part of what I'm doing tonight is just kind of musing a little bit, wondering if maybe I'm not the only one who feels at times that even though I believe God has me by the hand, I know that I'm more that child who wants to go this way and that way and every other way. I had spoken these words to a lady by the name of Anne Mercadante, who I had gone to visit in a little home care facility. I think I might have told you I went to communion to her, and a lady who's been a part of our, maybe they've both been a part of our church for a long time. You remember Goldie Snell? Yeah. And I had I used these verses when I was speaking to her, to Anne, simply because Anne has walked very difficult waters. And she, during COVID, lost both of her sons. I don't know if it was a day apart or a month apart. Do you remember, Jeff? You remember that story?
I want to say it was the same day.
The same day, like an hour apart or something like that, from COVID. And then her husband died shortly thereafter. And then she gets hit with a stroke that incapacitated her. And anyway, she just passed away not too long after I was with her. And my hope and my prayer is that she would believe that God held her by the hand, as much as it's difficult to see what it is he's doing. You know, when we read through Psalm 23 and we know that he provides green pastures for us, and we know that he gives us peace by quiet and still waters, and we know that he restores us and renews us just in how he does that. But the phrase that follows, it says, he leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake, not for my sake. And I want you to think on that for a minute, because oftentimes, if you're like me, God chooses a path for us that are right for his purposes, but feel very wrong in my mind. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And his pathway makes perfect sense to him. And sometimes it's just confusing to me. But that one line, for his name's sake, is what we have to believe, because a lot of times we think it's about us as we start that song, but when we come to that third and fourth verse right there, it turns on us. And that's when he starts to lead us into the valley. Right? So trusting that his purposes are right for me, it's an important part. And it came to me again today, just because as I was thinking of Anne, but then also heard, I don't know if it was posted somewhere, but Odie Hall lost his wife last night, I think, on Tuesday. And it wasn't a surprise. I mean, she had been failing, but he had felt very, very bad in the sense that he had always told her he would keep her at home the whole time. And yet it just got to the point to where he couldn't do that. So it's hard. It's hard to finally have to do something that you had promised yourself and your wife that you wouldn't do. And he was with our XYZs when she passed away. But both of her daughters were there. And so I've been just kind of calling and texting him back and forth, because the song, I don't know if you know the song Until Then. It's for some of you old people. It was written by a guy named Stuart Hamlin, who I believe it might have been at Grace every once in a while. I know his wife, I met his wife one time. Do you remember that? It's sort of, yeah. Stuart, his most famous song was This Old House. Some of you might remember. Anyway, I wrote these words to OD today, because the song is called Until Then. It was sung in a grand crusade, which is where Stuart Hamlin came to Christ. He was a singing cowboy like Roy Rogers. And, but he was finding more comfort in alcohol than anything, until he finally went to that crusade, was saved, and he had a radio program which got canceled because once he got saved, he wouldn't do the commercials for beer and for wine and alcohol. And so they fired him. But this song, Until Then, says, my heart can sing when I pause to remember a heartache here is but a stepping stone along a trail that's winding always upwards.
Amen.
This troubled world is not my final home. The things of earth will dim and lose its value if we recall they're borrowed for a while. And all the things of earth that cause a heart trouble, remembered there in heaven, will only be a smile. You ever look back over your shoulder and thought of something that just had you by the neck? verse. But until then, my heart shall go on singing. But until then, with joy I'll carry on, until my eyes behold the city, until that day God calls me home. And I texted that to him, and he responded to me. He said, I can hear George Beverly Shea singing that song right now. And I texted him back and said, I can hear you playing for him right now. But it reminded me even more of this, of the hymn, Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through this storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. So, I know that doesn't have a nice bow at the end, but sometimes life doesn't. I just wanted to remind you that God still has your hand, whether you're walking in the right direction, the same direction, trusting, doubting, whatever the case may be. He's not going to give up on you, and he's going to carry you. He's going to carry you along. Amen. So with that in mind, I did want you to be aware of an email I got from Sophia, who's not with us.